Okay, so hi and good evening. So we are going to be finishing chapter 19 of Tanya, and we did part one before, and now we're going to come into part two. So I'll try not to repeat too much of the beginning so that it's not too repetitive. If you've been following along, on the other hand, we do want to give over the general gist. So, coming to the beginning of chapter 19. So, we're talking about this hidden love that's Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. We're talking about the hidden love that is within a person's heart, every Jew's heart. It's almost like inheritance from our forefathers. And to discuss this hidden love, we also want to discuss another verse, which is Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, that the soul of man is a candle of Hashem. So this means that the souls of Jews who are called man, the Jewish people, our sages say, are called man in inverted commas, are by way of an illustration like the flame of a candle. And what does a candle do? It always wants to go upwards. The nature of a candle is to flicker upwards. And it says that the flame of the fire intrinsically wants to part from the wick even and unite with its source above in the universal element of fire, which is in the sublunar sphere. So let's say we're looking at all of the world, and the world's composed of water and earth and air. Those are all elements that go down, but it also is composed of an element of fire, which is sublunar under the planets, but still above the earth. So the candle always trying to reach up to that sort of fire that's up in the ethers, so to speak. And the soul of a Jew is the same way. It wants to reach up and join with its Father in heaven, so to speak. Now, what happens with the candle flame, if it joins, if the flame of a candle would actually leave the wick and go up and join into this kind of cosmic fire, so to speak, it would be consumed in that fire, and it would have no life of its own. It would have no separate identity. In fact, it wouldn't be even able to emit any light. But still, the nature of the candle is to want to go up and join in that light, even sort of to the point that it will lose its own identity. And somehow this is its nature, that it's striving to go upwards in this way. And it says that that's actually the neshama of a Jew also is doing this. It kind of wants to reunite with its source. And so the soul naturally desires and yearns to separate itself and depart from the body and unite with its origin and source in Hashem. Blessed be He who is the fountainhead of all life. So we have somebody else joining us. So this might be Shoshana. Is this
Hey,
Shoshana
bro.
joining us? Yeah,
I
that's you.
couldn't find the Zoom number. I just found it.
Okay, so good.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
all right.
Okay.
So welcome to Shoshana. So we're talking about the soul of a person being like the wick of a candle. And just like the wick, the fire of a candle has a yearning to kind of go upwards and join with the elemental fire of within the framework of earth, even if it's going to lose its own identity, joining into that elemental fire somehow that exists in the world. So too the neshama of a Jew wants really to be united with its source, even to the point that it would become nullified and lose its identity, that there's an aspect of the soul that really wants to sort of self-negate and join into its source. But we don't do that. We held to the body by the wick, by the goof of the candle, the wax of the candle, or the oil of the candle, and the wick of the candle holds the flame attached to the Gashmias in a way. But there is this aspect that it's the soul's desire that it's not based on reason and it's not rational, but it has this sort of desire. Now, we're going to talk about, which we talked about before, because we're really doing this more of a chazorah right now, but we're also speaking about the fact that the soul has a capacity of chokhmah, and chokhmah is really, chokhmah means officially wisdom, but it's really the capacity of the soul to make space for something bigger than itself, to step out of its own way, so to speak, to allow the light of the blessed Ein Sof to come into it. So, in other words, this aspect of Chokhmah is kind of connected to the part of the soul that can be utterly humble, that can be utterly selfless. And it's this humility and the selflessness that enables it, number one, to be open to new ideas and new things. And because it has to make a space and it has to kind of vacate itself and its own ego in some way to create this opening of, oh my, what is that? That's koach ma. The word chokhmah can be flipped around to be the words koach ma, the power of what. So it's like an utterly curious energy, but it's very humble. So it opens itself. And then it says this capacity of the soul to open itself in this way, which we're going to call chokhmah, is actually connected to holiness, kedusha, because holiness, kedusha, is only that which derives from chokhmah. It's called Kodesh HaElyon. So if we think about it, Chokhmah is this capacity of making oneself totally bittul, to open a wide space, to receive something other than oneself, to receive the light of wisdom, to receive the light of the Ein Sof, to make oneself kind of a vessel. And it so happens that Kedusha needs the same thing. It needs a nullification of the self in front of Hashem. And whenever there's this complete bittul, this opening of a space to receive the bigness of other, or the otherness, or the oneness of Hashem, or the Ein Sof, where you have that opening, you have holiness and Kedusha. Where you don't have that opening, and to the extent that you don't have the opening, you're going to get Klipah. So Klipah is when, let's say, a person or an entity or a something does not get out of its own way. And then there's a blockage, and then there's an ego, or then there's something other than this complete opening. That's what we call Klipah. So Klipah is often kind of put together with the Sitra Achra. And it says that this is really where the souls of the Gentiles come from, because there's an element of not stepping aside and not totally like vacating the space. So I guess the Alter Rebbe says this is the souls of the Gentiles. But I guess if we wanted to be very PC, we could say this is an aspect of a Gentile type of soul behavior. That if a soul behaves in a way of give me, give me, give me, as it's Esav was said, feed me, give me. I need that food right now, give it to me. That's, according to the Alter Rebbe, that is a typically Goyish kind of a way of behaving. Because he says here, the Goyim only act for themselves, saying, give me and give me, as Esav said, feed me, in order to, and they want to be independent beings and entities. They don't have this thing of, let me totally surrender and let me just merge with the Ein Sof and let me just surrender my identity the way a flame would surrender into the fire. So they don't want to do that. They want to keep the independence, keep themselves being independent beings, so to speak, or entities separate from Hashem, as mentioned earlier. That's a Klipah, and that keeps a distinct and separateness from Hashem, which is in direct contrast to the Chokhmah, which is the capacity of making space. Now, of course, so this is an energy. The energy of Klipah is I want to maintain my own individuality, and the energy of Chokhmah is I want to open and sort of negate my own ego self. But of course, there's a place for Klipah, right? Because a fruit, it needs its shell to protect it while it's growing. So the shell separates it from the elements, and we have a body and we have skin and we have places where the Klipah helps us individuate and helps us be separate beings and exist in this world. So there's a place and a room for Klipah, but energetically, if there's too much Klipah, then there's a blocking of this humility, which is going to receive this light of this connection to the Ein Sof through this faculty of Chokhmah, which is this faculty of being able to open in a self-negating way. So it carries on and says, therefore, those of the realm of Klipah, they described as being dead, in inverted commas, actually dead, because they're not opening to this life-giving, rejuvenating energy. Because it says, for wisdom or Chokhmah gives life. That's where this regeneration comes from. The more you separate from God, from the energy of God, the wisdom of God, the life force of God, the more there's chance for change and regeneration, and it's a flowing water, so to speak. But when you separate from that and you make a boundary and a blockage, then it says you're blocking the life force. And there's a quote here that they die without wisdom. They die without wisdom. So I'm not sure where the quote is. I could lose my place and look for the quote, but maybe we'll just carry on. It's a quote. They die without wisdom. In other words, if you're not connected to the source of infinitude, then you're going to, like a plant who's not connected to a source of water, it's going to shrivel and die. And water is the wisdom. So therefore, the nations that receive their life force from Klipah are considered, in inverted commas, dead. They're not really dead, but they're not plugged into this special life-giving, regenerative energy that connects you right into Hashem. So just as the heathen nations are called dead, so to speak, so too are the wicked and the sinners of Israel. Before they put to the test of sanctifying Hashem's name. So now it's going to switch and it's going to say, Yidden also can be completely dead. They can have this Chokhmah element of their being completely in a state of exile, where they're not connected to it. So they're sinning and they're wicked, and we kind of could almost write them off. But then suddenly, when there's a test, and certain situations will test a Jew, if that test comes along, what the Tanya is going to tell us is that in the Jew, the Chokhmah is not really dead, it's just sleeping. It's in a part of the being where it's been exiled. It's not able to influence the person's behavior. It's not able to influence their thought or their speech or their action, but it's resting somewhere in them. And when a certain kind of test comes, like the hostages in the tunnels or such things like that, when a Jew's very identity as a Jew is totally threatened, then this innate Chokhmah that is within them gets aroused, and suddenly it's able to kind of flare up and fill the whole soul of the person with this aspect of self-nullification, because that's what we're saying, that the essence of this quality is the ability to take yourself out of the picture, negate your ego, and open yourself to Hashem. So when this happens, they get pushed against the wall, worship this idol or die, bow down to this, become a Muslim or die, bow down to this idol or die. Somehow this chokhmah gets aroused, and suddenly there's the spirit of self-nullification in front of Hashem, and then they plugged in again the spirit of, let's say, living water, or this connection to Hashem flows through them once more, and they're alive again. And that is how they are able to, they sort of, in the dire straits of the test, they kind of wake up and they considered alive again because they reconnect. So Tanya's going to explain this in a little bit of detail. So it says, because the faculty of chokhmah in the divine soul, with the spark of godliness from the light of the blessed Ein Sof that is clothed in it, was in a state of exile in their body, within the animal soul of the realm of Klipah in the left part of the heart. And so the left part of the heart is the part of the heart that had dominion over thought, over speech, over action. And the godly soul was kind of wasn't having much of an influence over there. It was sitting somewhere dormantly in the right side of the soul, or in the right side of the heart, wasn't really being very effective. This exile of the faculty of chokhmah, while the animal soul was dominating the body, it actually echoes the idea of the Shekhinah in exile. So just like in a person, they can be experiencing their personal exile with their own chokhmah, capacity for chokhmah and bittul and connection being in exile within themselves, it's sleeping. Also, the Shekhinah is in exile. And it's also sleeping. It's not there, it's there, but it's sort of dormant. It's not having power to influence and direct activities in this lower realm, so to speak. So it's for this reason, this love found in the divine soul, whose wish and desire it is to unite with Hashem, is called a hidden love. It's hidden because it's sleeping, it's dormant, it's not really activated. It's hidden, and it's veiled. When someone is a sinner, it's in this wrappings of the Klipah. And because this aspect of love for Hashem is hidden and it's wrapped in the Klipah, a person can do a lot of aveiros. And it says they don't do an aveira unless they get what's called a spirit of folly. In Hebrew, it's called a ruach shtus, a foolishness in their head, which makes them think that they can sin and it's not going to disconnect them from Hashem. So they foolishly do these things. They're not plugged into how their actions are really affecting their soul. But this exile of the chokhmah affects only that aspect of it which is diffused throughout the nef. So it's partly in exile. But the root and core of the chokhmah in the divine soul is in the brain, and that part is not in exile. That part is not in exile. It's just dormant. It's waiting. It's so preoccupied with mundane pleasures that it can't kind of get itself going, can't animate itself. But when these wicked or wrapped in Klipah type of Yidden are tested, then, and a test of their faith, it's not a rational thing. This aspect transcends knowledge and touches the very soul and the faculty of chokhmah. Then they wake up, so to speak, this dormant aspect arises from its sleep, and then suddenly now it's very awake, You poked the sleeping bear. You actually made it aware that if it does certain actions, it's going to be severed from Hashem for real, like by converting or doing something really radical. Suddenly the Jew says, hey, no, I don't want to do that. The other little things I did, they weren't really consequential. But now you want me to convert, you want me to become a Christian, you want me to become a Muslim, forget about that. I don't want to do that. Suddenly this dormant aspect, this chokhmah aspect, suddenly wakes up and starts to exert its influence with the divine force that was clothed in it. And then it says, then Hashem woke up those who were sleeping. The Lord awakened one out of sleep. This person gets woken up and then can withstand a big test of faith in Hashem without having any knowledge or rational reasons. It's just this kind of primal, fundamental thing that gets woken up. And suddenly now this capacity, this dormant love for Hashem can prevail over the Klipahs, the Klipot. It can prevail over his connection to worldly matters. It can prevail over what's permitted and what's forbidden. It can prevail over his habits. And he's able, when he's pushed in this very extreme way, to choose Hashem and even to offer his soul to Hashem, to even, it's been a phenomenon in history, to even become a martyr, because to be severed from Hashem when it becomes apparent that his actions, if he turned to the one way and not the other way, he could really sever his connection in a very deep way. That doesn't happen. So although the Klipot were prevailing over him all of his life, and the rabbis would say that the wicked were under the control of their heart, they were just listening and following their heart. But when they face such a challenge of faith in one God, then suddenly this level of holiness, this level of chokhmah, which is called kodesh, that suddenly comes into play. And it says all the nations, including also the Klipot, are as nothing before him. That somehow when a person is pushed to this test, suddenly this connection to Hashem kind of floods and overwhelms all of his previous lack of knowledge, habits, all the other things that are in his life. And then this idea that all your enemies, O Hashem, all the nations are nothing before you. None of your enemies can stand in front of this power of Hashem or the power of the soul to be able to stand strong against all the other elements of a person. All your enemies will perish. They will be scattered. And as wax melts before fire, so shall the wicked perish. So we're talking not just about the foreign nations, which, please God, we should see it in the big scale, but we're talking about it also in the little scale of the person. When they faced with the test, somehow they pushed, and then their faculty of chokhmah is able to come from its sleeping state. And we explained that it is in the person as an inheritance from our forefathers and our foremothers. And this force, the force of this divine light of the Ein Sof, is so intense that it can banish and repel the Sitra Achra and the Klipot, so that even the garments of the soul, like even the thought, speech, and action, are not compromised anymore. So even if the Jew is told, just bow down in front of this idol and look like you're kissing it, but in your heart, you'll know you're not doing it, even that they won't do. Like even an action, a simple action they won't do, because suddenly this power of chokhmah, of Ein Sof, of bittul has been aroused and awakened, and then even little things they wouldn't do at all, and wouldn't even speak falsely, concerning the unity of Hashem, even if his words don't reflect his true feelings. Suddenly he can't even do this, because this is the fear, the awe contained in love, meaning the natural love found in the divine soul of all Jews, whose intrinsic desire is to be attached to its origin and source, to the blessed Ein Sof. It flares up, it comes up, it's aroused, and by virtue of this love and this desire, it instinctively recoils in fear and dread from touching, God forbid, even the fringe of the impurity of idolatry or denying the faith in Hashem, even when such contact would involve only an outer garment like speech, thought, or just a small little action, and wouldn't really represent his deep feelings in his heart. He, according to the Tanya, a Jew will not do it. He will stand up for his connection to Hashem, because just like the flame is attached to the candle, the soul of a Jew never wants to be sundered from its connection, cut off from its connection. And all the time it was sinning, it was basically telling itself, this isn't really cutting me off. This is not really cutting me off. But when it's put to this kind of a test in front of the world, or in front of enemies, or in front of a situation like the hostages, I keep saying, then the soul of a Jew can't do it. And suddenly this inherent love flares up. But it's not just a love, it's also a bittul. It's also a place where the person's persona minimizes, and their capacity to receive the bigness of the Ein Sof maximizes, and they connect, they find their connection, and then suddenly they can withstand any test, even if it means martyrdom, which is what we've seen so many times in history, which we, please God, should not see anymore. We should have enough of martyrs, and we should have enough of these kind of tests, and the Shekhinah should not be in exile and not need such extreme measures to bring it out of exile. But this is the idea. This is chapter 19, and I'm open to questions or comments. And Dina Bracha is listening on her phone, which doesn't allow her to comment. So that leaves Shoshana, if you have any comments or questions, if you're there. Otherwise, we will bring this to a close. And anyone who wants to. So Shoshana, I don't know if you know that you're muted. So if you're talking, I wouldn't. Yeah, so now you're unmuted.
No, I was on mute.
Oh, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I don't. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I just think the takeaway before we end,
Completely.
the takeaway, just to summarize very basically, the takeaway is Kedusha, Kodesh.
That's right.
Is the capacity to be open, to open this channel. And the opposite of the Kedusha is this Klipah, where there's the closing of this channel through the ego or the self or whatever other obstacles there are. And so, and so
right.
that, yeah. So that is
particularly
chapter 19. Sorry?
Terrible thing happened in Ukraine with the Alter Rebbe, Tanya's, what happened there, right? And
I saw his place was vandalized.
It was up in flames, the shul and the guest house, and so it's very, very telling that we have to, quote, up our game. Yeah.
Also in France, there was a burglary in one of the shuls in France, and they stole 12 Sifrei Torah. Not sure why they want them. Maybe they want to sell them on the black market, but they burglarized a shul in France and stole 12 Sifrei Torah. So we're in intense times, and as you say, we need to up our game.
And that we have to continue to grow, It's like that's how I look at it. We have to work harder on it.
And try to minimize the ego and open up this capacity of
Right.
koach ma, which is opening to the wisdom of that which is bigger than me, the wisdom of the
Right.
Ein Sof, the wisdom of the all that is, the wisdom of that which is in Torah, Hashem, the revelations from above. So that is Tanya for today. And
Yeah, it goes
next
along
week,
with the parsha. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, well, next week, Emetz Hashem, well, next week I won't be here, Monday or Wednesday, but when we continue, we will go, we will be on chapter 20 of the Tanya. So
Okay.
thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Brahula.